Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Victory Road World Cup of VGC. I'm still Maeve, but I'm here today with David Partington for our second match. David, how are you feeling? I know that last match was definitely interesting. I know you were watching along for all of those exciting crits and everything that we had to deal with.
Yeah, it was an excellent match. Thank you for having me on all. I'm really interested to see how Gyarados actually is approaching in the meta at the moment as a water type for a lot of consistent teams. Like it's got Intimidate. It's not weak to grass as well. So it on a team that's maybe a little bit weak to Rillaroom, but you still want a water type, like Gyarados is an excellent pick. So it's really cool to see that. And the bulky Kyogre too, maybe a show of things to come as well. But for now, we've got Mexico and France.
Yeah, and Mexico and France is another really interesting bracket. You know, last time we did see it was 5-0 in the beginning, now 5-1. So, but this one actually is a little bit closer. It is currently 3-0 France, which I know we'll see moving forward, but that does mean that this is still anyone's section, you know, anyone's match here really, because, you know, if we do have Mexico ends up winning this match, you know, Mexico can't afford to drop anymore just to, you know, at least get a tie. So, you know, could be really interesting to see here, but this is one of the toughest groups in this group stage. Peru has been absolutely phenomenal. France and Japan, we saw they played last week, and that was an incredible set of matches. And then Mexico as well has still been doing very well. Mexico was still 3-5 against Peru, and Peru has been one of those top teams. I know you guys played Peru, I believe, in that very first grouping, and Peru was an absolutely firecracker of a team.
It absolutely was. Peru was so good. I think a lot of people still had some high hopes for Peru, but I don't think to this extent as well. They're doing so well. And Mexico do really need this win as well going versus France, as they have lost their first week one, as we can see here, versus Peru. So, and France are feeling a little bit comfortable, especially after that win over Japan, a very strong team. But we've got two players coming in here that are really looking to show themselves and have shown themselves in their previous games for their own teams as well. And just as we said, looking at the group stage as a whole at the moment, France are up 3-0. So Mexico really do need to get their wins in. It looks like they have been getting those little wins within each of the sets. It's all 2-1 at the moment, so all very close as well. So we might even see another one here, Maeve.
Yeah, and just so you guys know too, we are casting for Christian Ramírez and Antoine Guyader for both of these teams. Obviously, looking at these teams, 5 Zacians, the very first thing I see. You know, all Zacians, all with an electric type here. But for Christian's team, he's not running Zacian. He is running Kyogre with Incineroar, Rillaboom, Zapdos, Amoonguss, and Mimikyu. So almost very similar to the team that we saw that last match. Not sure if it'll be the exact same kind of bulky Kyogre with leftovers with Black Sludge Amoonguss. But still interesting to see, you know, how those Kyogre teams have been coming up, especially when they're not running with something like that Tornadus and that Serena, which we've seen them paired with a lot.
It is, and he's also used this very similar team, I believe, versus Peru in the group stage, where he won his match, and it was these exact 6 except a Scizor over a Moongus last time. So he's obviously quite comfortable with what he's got here.
Yeah, and Scizor is one of those Pokemon that I'm really loving in this meta. We haven't seen it a whole lot, but it is one of those Pokemon that you wouldn't have expected a long time ago to really have any sort of metagame presence. Amoonguss is obviously a much more popular pick. Often, you know, Amoonguss or Volcarona we're seeing run in very similar ways, though. But Antoine's team, you know, if he is running another Zacian, like we've seen with all of the rest of the teams on the French side, that could be really interesting as well, just for how they're all team building. Especially, you know, if we cut over to what Antoine is running, I know that's going to be probably something that Christian is going to have to play around. It is actually not, though. It's that Calyrex Ice Rider with the Incineroar, the Lurantis, the Zapdos, Tapu Fini, and Mimikyu. So the same Incineroar, the Incineroar, Mimikyu, and Zapdos here, but 3 very different Pokemon from the rest of the French teams.
He does, and Antoine here has a few accomplishments of his own here. Top 32 in the Players' Cup 3 EU qualifiers, and top 32 in the Victory Road Circuit Spring Series, I believe, number 5. So he's got a lot of accomplishments here. However, for his team, he's only actually played once before, and that was versus Greece, where he actually lost versus our own Costa Didymos, using Zacian, Incineroar, Regieleki, Urshifu, and Volcarona. So this is something very different that obviously he's been brewing for quite a few weeks this time. So I'm really excited to see how this is going to operate, especially that Lurantis here.
Yeah, Lurantis is one of my favorite Pokemon. You know, having its ability there, contrary, and it's able to go for moves like that superpower, and it's able to just be, you know, such a threat. If you let it start to steamroll, it almost acts like its own beast boost, but per move. And then Calyrex Ice Rider, you know, with Glacial Lance, it's not one of the two horses. It's not a Pokemon that we're seeing as much, but it definitely can run really well, especially on a slow team like this, where you have Mimikyu that has been running Trick Room, and you have that Incineroar, which can pair really well to help set up moves like Trick Room and just get you into a better position moving forward.
Yeah, not to mention the side Shadow Sneak that often just procs that weakness policy on Calyrex and absolutely makes it go to town. Whether you're in Trick Room or out, Mimikyu can quite reliably get that off. It can't be faked out, so it's often quite a staple on these Calyrex Ice teams. But enough said about these players. Let's get into the team preview of these players. So we're seeing it from, it looks like Christian Ramirez's end here of Mexico versus Antoine Guyader of France. So I'm looking at these two teams and I'm seeing a few commonalities, but obviously these teams do seem to run a little bit differently as well, because we've got a very hard Trick Room end on the Calyrex Ice, whereas we've got Kyogre here. A little bit of reveal of the items as well as you may be seeing here, so that kind of indicates it may be liking this Trick Room matchup a little bit more than, say, a lot of Choice Scarf Kyogres. But on Antoine's end, I think that Lurantis is definitely kind of going to have a huge place here versus Incineroar. It's going to get an attack boost instead of attack drop thanks to that contrary ability. It's pretty strong into Rillaboom as well. That's kind of a free superpower right into that slot, especially in Trick Room. You get the defense boost up before you get hit by that U-turn, and obviously versus Kyogre, it does a lot of damage.
If you told me I was going to be commentating two leftovers Kyogre matches when I woke up this morning, I think I would have been I wouldn't have believed you. Just as every single Kyogre match that I've commentated over the past month plus has been Specs or Scarf or something interesting. So to see two in one day, especially from two different teams, is absolutely wild to me. It's so exciting, of course. The leads for game one here, though, we're going to start with that Incineroar and that Mimikyu. And then instead on this side, we are going to have the Kyogre and the Rillaboom. So Kyogre, Rillaboom, great team. Fake out pressure on both sides. Rillaboom, the faster fake out, of course.
It is. So Drizzle is the first ability reveal here, rather, as Grassy Surge does come next. So we are going in speed stat order at the moment, so nothing too surprising here. No power anklets on the Rillaboom or anything. So Intimidate does come out from the Incineroar, weakening this Rillaboom a little bit more. So it looks like from Christian's end, he's kind of led maybe accepting that the Trick Room's going to go up here. There's no really obvious way to deny this Mimikyu's Trick Room setup unless there's maybe a taunt on the Rillaboom, which is quite rare, especially as they're often Assault Vest. So Antoine's led his kind of all-reliable Trick Room mode to set up here. He can fake out, he can deny Kyogre any boosts, any huge damage coming out, but obviously with Mimikyu's Disguise, it's able to take one hit here. And even if Kyogre goes first, pops up Disguise, thanks to the Intimidate on the Rillaboom, it's probably not getting a knockout here either. So we can probably safely say Trick Room's going to go up here on the Mimikyu's end. It's just about how Antoine actually makes the most of those and getting his Calyrex Ice in.
Yeah, Rillaboom goes for the fake out onto the Incineroar slot, so Incineroar not going to be able to give a fake out of its own. The Origin Pulse here actually hits both of the Pokemon on Antoine's side, which is absolutely huge, no misses. It does actually get the one-hit knockout on that Rillaboom. Of course, busts the Disguise on that Mimikyu, which is going to drop a little bit of chip HP for the way Disguise mechanic works in this generation. But losing that Incineroar early is going to be really nice because you're not going to have the fake out pressure on Antoine's side. Mimikyu does get that Trick Room off, so it is going to show, is going to slow down the game a little bit more, twisting the dimensions, allowing this Calyrex to possibly come in for free.
It is. So it's, in a way, it's kind of what you want when you're a Trick Room player, because as soon as Calyrex is in its position, it's able to come in safely. It's not going to be burnt, it's not going to be intimidated at the moment, and here it comes. And as once it's got a KO, it just starts to just keep rolling as well with that chilling Neigh ability that it has in addition to its Unnerve. And it also with a Mimikyu right here as well, there's no follow me, so Shadow Sneak is good, if Antoine has it, is able to go into this Calyrex and potentially give it a weakness policy boost, which is probably the most common item that we've seen here. There's seen some Life Orbs around as well to kind of get that instant boost to your attack damage without actually having to have Mimikyu on the field, or maybe a side U-turn from Incineroar, but I do expect to see that at the moment. And if Christian's Kyogre is the bulky leftovers variant, it's probably going to be able to take a hit, especially if it's that Glacial Lance. But if Rillaboom goes down here, that's another attack boost for this Calyrex. So I'll be interested to see how Christian responds to a lot of this offense, potentially an Incineroar coming in.
Yeah, Incineroar switches in, gonna get an important Intimidate off, gonna protect that Rillaboom from some sort of strong Ice type attack, possibly like that Glacial Lance here. But most importantly, have that Fake Out pressure onto this Calyrex Ice next turn. The side Shadow Sneak into the Calyrex will proc that weakness policy, like you said. So this thing is already up and running. It is in its preferred terrain with that Trick Room here. Gets those boosts, goes for a high horsepower actually onto the Incineroar. So call that Incineroar switch in. Is not enough to get the knockout though, only down to 20 HP. Kyogre gets that free Calm Mind off by not taking any damage this turn.
Yeah, an amazing read from Antoine there. He knows he's probably played this Calyrex a lot. Everyone wants to switch in their Incineroar on Calyrex because you resist the ice quite nicely, get Intimidate off, reduce its damage even further. But he makes a really nice call and gets the highest with a +1 high horsepower into Incineroar, but it's not quite enough. And with Kyogre's boost here, it's looking really threatening at the moment. I'd be curious to see as to whether a rain boosted +1 special attack Origin Pulse is enough to take out a Calyrex. I wouldn't be too sure because Calyrex is so bulky on its own as well. But Incineroar does have a fake out turn here, which is really crucial because there's no psychic terrain on Antoine's end, no Serena to block it at the moment, so it's fairly safe to go in there. And Mimikyu's not offering too much of its own. Now it's also intimidated here. Kyogre doesn't mind taking a Will-O-Wisp. Maybe a space switch into the Lurantis, because I surely imagine you bring it here.
Yeah, Calyrex goes for a Protect, though, not going to be taking any damage. Incineroar goes for a Parting Shot, actually, into this Mimikyu, so we'll drop those stats on the Mimikyu of its attack and special attack and send itself back in for possibly this Rillaboom like we saw earlier, but it can most importantly be that 4th Pokemon in the party. Instead, though, it is going to be that Rillaboom that switches back out, so keeping that Fake Out pressure back on the field for the next turn, especially because this Calyrex already protected. Mimikyu goes for a Play Rough into the Kyogre, goes so little damage. Kyogre goes for that Origin Pulse, won't hit that Calyrex through that Protect, obviously. Mimikyu avoids it, though, so that is really the biggest issue with that Origin Pulse. You know, its biggest fatal flaw is that it can miss, and it does quite a lot.
Absolutely. So it's an interesting miss though, because if you do get that KO there, Mimikyu goes down, but you get like a nice switch into your Lurantis versus Rillaboom and Kyogre, which is actually pretty good for Antoine, but actually he doesn't get it at the moment, and this Mimikyu's kind of sitting here not doing a whole lot really. It may have that Will-O-Wisp going into the Rillaboom here, but at the moment the main threat is the Kyogre, and he's not able to get that safe switch into anything, because at the moment if you try and switch into your Lurantis and maybe it's not Assault Vest, it's going to take a huge amount of damage.
Yeah, Rillaboom goes for the Fake Out into that Calyrex here. Another critical hit. We see them a lot on Fake Outs. They really don't do a whole lot. The Will-O-Wisp, though, from that Mimikyu is going to be really important onto this Rillaboom. It's going to mitigate the amount of damage this Rillaboom can do and add a little bit of chip every single turn. Origin Pulse actually connects here onto both of these Pokemon, even through that Fake Out, which is great. It is enough to it is not enough to knock out either of these Pokemon, gets them down to the bottom 25% of their health, but most importantly, it's going to allow for a Grassy Glide next turn to take out either of these Pokemon possibly.
Yeah, I think it is. So we see a little bit more of the speed reveal of the grassy terrain, which isn't too surprising. But yeah, a huge live by both of those Pokemon at the moment. But as I said, there's not a lot of reason to not take knockouts at the moment, especially as you don't want that free switch into the Lurantis, which I'm thinking is in the back at the moment for Antoine. But Calyrex being so low at the moment, there's only a few turns of Trick Room left. Potentially only one at this point, and Grassy Glide being priority is very good for Christian at the moment.
Yeah, Mimikyu switches out here actually for that Tapu Fini. So that Tapu Fini comes in fully healthy and is going to change this terrain, most importantly, from that grassy terrain to that misty terrain. So now there isn't going to be that priority Grassy Glide, which could make this Rillaboom move very late in this game. Kyogre goes for a Protect, though. So this could be a really great setup for this Calyrex to go for that Glacial Lance into this Rillaboom slot, who with the burn is now going to not be as bulky as it could possibly be to handle this, and is going to take a massive amount of damage from this incredible animation of Glacial Lance. It is enough to get the one-hit knockout, so that great change in terrain means that there wasn't any knockouts for Christian this turn, and gets that Chilling Knee boost for Antoine nice and early into the game.
Yeah, it does. I think Christian wasn't expecting the Fini in the back there. I imagine that was a Grassy Glide just to kind of KO the Calyrex, but Trick Room now we do see has expired, so Kyogre is definitely in the position that it wants. But being this Calm Mind leftover set, it doesn't seem to have room for Thunder, which means now that Rillaboom is gone, Tapu Fini is actually looking really good for Antoine at the moment. He's got the misty terrain up, there's no grassy terrain anymore either, just as the Rillaboom goes down, which is like the perfect time to get it in, as well as Calyrex also getting a boost. Christian is able to bring his Incineroar, he's got some Fake Out stuff going on now, which is quite nice, but it's still quite an interesting position, especially if the Tapu Fini can boost up, because a boosted Tapu Fini, say with Calm Mind, is probably maybe able to overwhelm this Kyogre, but Kyogre is still ahead in the boosts at the moment. So as long as it can maybe connect with the Calyrex with an Origin Pulse, deny a further Trick Room, and maybe Incineroar will help with that as well. I think the ball's still definitely in Christian's court here at the moment, because Mimikyu's in the back, and that's also at very low health here. So it's a tough ask, but I think it's down to the Tapu Fini set at the moment. I think it's definitely still doable. And Christian's also got a few tools still to go. Fake Out on this turn. You can also boost again with Christian here, but we do see a Protect this time on the Calyrex.
Yeah, Protect this time. Incineroar goes for that Fake Out, possibly trying to stop something like a Nature's Madness, like you said, which could be an absolutely huge change in that set. Could allow it to overwhelm here, but we do get the Origin Pulse into this Tapu Fini, so it will at least make that one target, even though that Calyrex has protected this turn. It does very little damage, but most importantly, this Tapu Fini is not going to be able to move this turn and may allow for this Kyogre to be a little bit more defensive in the next turn.
Indeed. So Kyogre is offering a lot of damage at the moment, and as long as it hits, as we've seen, there has been a few misses. So does it hit again?
It does hit again, actually. So it hits contact on both of these Pokemon, knocks out that Calyrex out of the game, will possibly allow for this Lurantis to come in, like you said, which could be really problematic, having two Pokemon on the field that are super effective against this Kyogre. Incineroar does get to eat, though. Incineroar eats its berry, so we will see that it is probably that Figgy Berry instead of a Citrus, so it will regain almost up to half of its HP. And then we also see the Tapu Fini eating its berry here, so now the Citrus Berry, because that Unnerve is off the field, both these Pokemon got that little extra health boost. And now the Muddy Water comes out onto the Incineroar. It is not enough to knock it out thanks to that Figgy Berry, and not very effective on the Kyogre. Incineroar gets that Parting Shot off onto this Pokemon here for the Tapu Fini. Gonna lower that attack and special attack, but most importantly gonna switch out for whatever Christian has in the back.
Yeah, Antoine, I think, was really needed either that KO or some accuracy drops at that point, and unfortunately he gets neither here. So Kyogre is in a very commanding position at the moment. And as we can see, Christian still has his full health Mimikyu in the back as well. So versus Antoine's very low health Mimikyu, busted Disguise, and there's no boost on this Tapu Fini yet either. So it's looking pretty good for Christian at the moment. He's still got his restricted on the field. His big pink whale is ready to just destroy everything it has, but it still does need to hit its Origin Pulses, because Ice Beam isn't going to do a whole lot to Tapu Fini. It's got a lot of special defense. Mimikyu, I would guess, would go down here, but it's just about denting this Tapu Fini at the moment. And if Tapu Fini's only got Muddy Water, possibly a Moonblast, but versus Kyogre's massive special defense at the moment, especially with this Calm Mind boost, it's a tough ask. I think if you're Antoine, you're going to be thinking about game 2 here. I think getting up Trick Room was definitely something he was able to do, but I think Christian makes some excellent reads, for instance, like faking out the correct targets and protecting the right targets at the right time as well. But with the Mimikyu being stuck on the field, it wasn't offering a lot of offense.
Yeah, the Mimikyu's Disguise does get busted by Antoine, showing that his Mimikyu may be a little bit faster. Could also be a speed tie here. Kyogre goes for an Origin Pulse, will connect on both of these targets, will comfortably knock out this Mimikyu, do a little bit more chip damage onto the Tapu Fini. We haven't really seen a lot of moves that it's offered besides that Muddy Water, so if it's not running that Nature's Madness, you can be a little bit more comfortable. Mimikyu goes for a Play Rough on Christian's side, does a really massive amount of damage, while the Tapu Fini goes for a Moonblast here onto the Kyogre slot, so Kyogre going to take just a little bit of damage here. So boosted up with that Calm Mind. This is going to be game for Christian, and Christian, looking to game 2, he definitely prepped for that Lurantis that didn't come. So I think that might have been Antoine's toughest point here, is not having that extra power in the back where he might have needed it.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you've got a Lurantis on your team, then I think the purpose of it is to bring it versus Kyogre, surely, if anything. But it was a really well played game by both players at the moment, because we saw the Trick Room go up perfectly as Antoine wanted. He got the Calyrex in the right position he wanted to, but it was interesting seeing how Christian's team was able to respond to it, having a very bulky Kyogre, which is not a lot not what I'm team building for anyway. It's something that's very bulky, and you're used to just those really fast Choice Scarf, bang, 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 Water Spout everywhere. But this time, it's able to slow play it so well, and it sat on the field for the entire game.
Yeah, that Kyogre is a total menace to the Pokemon on Antoine's side of the field if it's not taken care of early. If you don't, having that Rillaboom is something that was, I think, really interesting as well, because it did allow for Christian to get those the leftovers and the Grassy Glide boost and just keep that Kyogre so healthy until that Tapu Fini switched in. The Rillaboom wasn't able to get that Grassy Glide knockout onto either of those two Pokemon, but at the end it really didn't matter because he was still able to knock those Pokemon out later in the game. That Rillaboom was really just something that put on a lot of pressure onto both of those Pokemon. And having that Intimidate switching around is also really nice because, having the Fake Out and the Intimidate onto that Glacial Lance for that Calyrex really meant that Rillaboom could survive that one extra turn with, that very low amount of HP that it ended up having. So again, I would love to see the Lurantis this turn. I think this is the game to bring it, especially, if you're worried about, getting that Trick Room set up early. I think the lead was great, but having that extra power for that Kyogre if your Calyrex goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think interestingly though, you've got Calyrex as well as a Trick Room mode that could set up Trick Room itself. And what makes it such a good restrictor at the moment if you play the right team around it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Incineroar Calyrex at the moment as well, because versus a Kyogre lead at the moment, I'm guessing it's more of a bulky Kyogre, less in special attack. You kind of want to get the boosts up immediately. It may not be able to offer a lot of damage straight off the bat here. So that could be an option to get up Trick Room that Christian may not even expect here. And that allows you to maybe leave Mimikyu at home, so you can still bring your Incineroar to help set it up. You still get your Lurantis, and you still get the Fini to kind of counteract the grassy terrain of the Rillaboom. So that is another mode of going. And we haven't even seen the Zapdos either. So both the grass type and the electric type weren't even brought to the Kyogre matchup, which is really interesting. And even though we did see the Fini actually switch in to kind of help KO the Rillaboom, it just wasn't quite enough right in the end game. There just weren't enough tools there at the end. But let's get into this game 2.
Yeah, game 2 here for both of these trainers. The adjustments will have to be pretty immediate, I believe, for both of the Pokemon here, though. So we will see for the leads, the Calyrex and the Mimikyu, actually. So 2 Trick Room setters right in the beginning. Instead, no real fake out opportunities here, but then Kyogre and Mimikyu as well. So the interesting thing here is you have 3 Pokemon that could possibly use Trick Room, only 2 that probably will. But now you have 2 disguises to bust.
Yeah, that's true, actually. And you've got to wonder on Antoine's end if at any point Christian can go for his own Trick Room and just reverse it, or even go for it this turn or the next turn. So suddenly there's all these mind games, kind of like how Substitute creates all those mind games as to whether, should I protect from the attack or shall I predict the Substitute and actually go for the attack? Like, you kind of got this Trick Room mind game at the moment as well, as to whether Christian can go for it. And so I think it's quite a smart lead and a smart change up, that it's something actually that Antoine has to think about. But Antoine does this time actually lead with his Calyrex, so he's able to offer the Trick Room here as well as his Mimikyu. So it's even more mind games for Christian. Which one's going to go for it? Which one might protect? Is he just going to go straight for the Shadow Sneak Glacial Lance here? Who knows? So, but with the Christian's lead, I quite like, because Mimikyu's often run Will-O-Wisp, and that's a great shutdown for Calyrex, unless there is a Fini switch in.
Yeah, Tapu Fini switches in here possibly to stop that Will-O-Wisp, gets that Misty Surge up as well, just possibly to make sure that there is no burn, no status conditions onto any of the Pokemon here on the field. Kyogre goes for that Origin Pulse. There were no fake outs in turn 1 because none of the Pokemon could use it, so you have these really powerful attacks going off into both of these Pokemon. Each one takes about, Tapu Fini takes about a third and Calyrex takes about a half, but it most importantly does not get that Will-O-Wisp because of that Tapu Fini's Mystery Terrain, and gets that Trick Room up on its own.
Yeah, great play by Antoine here. He absolutely calls Christian's turn there, and really crucially, Calyrex can actually take 2 Origin Pulses from this Kyogre, which is really crucial and good information for Christian as well. But it means that Antoine is in a very nice position. However, you kind of want Mimikyu's Disguise to kind of get busted, and then for the Calyrex to kind of do the remaining damage, because it does the most at the moment. So, but the speed to kind of swap the other way around at the moment. But here comes that Lurantis move.
Yeah, Lurantis comes in. This is a really nice move here. Tapu Fini gets that Muddy Water off onto both of the Pokemon here on Christian's side. There is no miss. Most importantly, it breaks the Disguise onto this Mimikyu. Not very effective onto this Kyogre, but Mimikyu loses the accuracy drop, most importantly. Does not affect the Kyogre, though, possibly, so that's really what's important here. Does get that little bit of extra chip damage. Kyogre goes for that Origin Pulse, so not the accuracy drop Antoine was looking for, as both of his Pokemon now take that Origin Pulse at the end of this set of turns. Little damage on the Lurantis, but most importantly gets down to half on that Tapu Fini, who will eat that Citrus Berry and bring it right back up a little bit more like we saw in that last game. And Mimikyu actually goes for the Trick Room reset here, so it hadn't moved yet, which was interesting, and now it gets those Twisted Dimensions returned to normal, which could be nice for this Lurantis coming in if it is a little bit faster.
Yeah, if it is a little bit faster, that could be nice. But now the Trick Room's over, Kyogre with its naturally quite high speed, it should be able to get an Ice Beam off into this Lurantis. However, with that amount of damage Lurantis has taken there, I do wonder if it is that Assault Vest. So it is able to take those special hits so much better. And at the moment, it's threatening a lot of damage out with a Leaf Blade. However, it's still not boosted by its signature superpowers that actually boost its stats instead. So it's still not too threatening at the moment, but there is no threat of Will-O-Wisp either from this Mimikyu, but now Rillaboom comes in.
Yeah, Rillaboom comes in, changing that terrain from that misty terrain to the grassy terrain, getting a little bit of extra HP recovery possibly onto this Kyogre that could really use it if it does take a Leaf Blade and is specially protected here. Instead, it goes for a regular Protect, so it's not going to be taking any damage from either of these Pokemon. Another Muddy Water from this Tapu Fini, really fishing for these accuracy drops onto this Kyogre, who would not love having those on its already inaccurate Origin Pulse. Rillaboom takes just a small amount of damage. We do not see the drop, though, for the accuracy. Lurantis goes for that Leaf Blade into the Kyogre, though, so not able to get any of that damage off. Kyogre is going to heal up a little bit more from that leftovers and that grassy terrain, so now it is back at full HP.
I love that play from Christian there. He plays it nice and safe. There's no threat of Trick Room now on Antoine's end because he's removed his Trick Room setters from the field, and he switches in his Fake Out Pokemon because it doesn't look like Antoine's actually brought his Fake Out of his own. So Christian's really in the driver's seat at the moment. He's got the Speaker Trolley once, he's got his Fake Out in the nice position, he's got Grassy Terrain healing up his Kyogre again, and the Lurantis still wasn't able to get a cheeky little superpower, so it's still not doing too much. But on the contrary, it's now a little bit boosted thanks to the Grassy Terrain that Christian set for himself. So I imagine, but you still have the Fake Out to kind of cover that Lurantis slot. Even, say, a U-turn plus an Ice Beam may even be enough to take it out at the moment. But because this Tapu Fini isn't boosting, it seems, it may be a little bit more of a supportive set. We've only kind of seen Muddy Water and Moobas at the moment, so it's not doing a lot of offense.
Yeah, that Fake Out does a really good amount of damage. Kyogre gets that really free Calm Mind off here. So now that Kyogre is going to have that boost in its special attack and its special defense, going to make it a real powerhouse now that there is no Trick Room. Tapu Fini goes for that Moonblast into the Kyogre slot here. Does a pretty small chunk of damage, just about a quarter of the HP. Most importantly, gets that special attack drop. So now that Calm Mind only really helped get that special defense boost and now loses that special attack gain that it had tried to go for.
Yeah, it is. Christian is able to get his special defense up, but yeah, as you say, that it may not be enough special attack now to KO this Lurantis, depending on how much bulk is in that Lurantis, how much damage output Christian's Pokemon have on his end, because if Lurantis is able to get that Leaf Blade off, it's going to do a lot of damage, especially in this grassy terrain. So Christian does have the option of just protecting his Kyogre, though, and, say, pivoting in an Incineroar or something. I don't believe we've seen the fourth at the moment. It's just Mimikyu in the back so far. So, however, if you do obviously switch in your Incineroar, you are just boosting this Lurantis even further. So it's a great pick for Antoine, but Fini is now the switch out.
Yeah, Mimikyu comes in here for Antoine, that unbusted disguise, most importantly. Kyogre goes for the Ice Beam here into the Lurantis. It is not enough to knock it out. That one special attack drop, I think, is absolutely huge, but Rillaboom's U-turn should be enough to finish it off. So now this Lurantis was unable to get any attacks off on the field and kind of just sat there like a sitting duck waiting for that extra, for the damage on Christian's side. And now this sends this Rillaboom back. It is going to be able to send out either that Mimikyu or, once again, peek behind the screen, we do see that Incineroar. So now Mimikyu will come out, could go for another Shadow Sneak. The disguise is busted on Christian's Mimikyu, and the rain does stop.
It does. So likely the Assault Vest on that Lurantis there, because we didn't see a Protect, and it was taking the Ice Beam rather well there too, especially from a Kyogre, which is obviously a very strong Pokemon. But crucially, Rillaboom kind of gets switched out here. So even when Fini comes back in on Antoine's end, Christian's still able to respond and bring in his own Rillaboom to kind of reset the terrain and offer a lot of grass damage into the Fini once it's on the field. But Calyrex is on the field this time, which is a lot more bulky, and Antoine's definitely going to be looking to try and set up the Trick Room if he can. But he's lost his main way of kind of dealing damage to Christian's Kyogre at the moment, which is that Lurantis. As we know, he hasn't brought the Zapdos this time either. So it's going to be physical damage that he really wants to be dealing into this Kyogre, and Calyrex is a great way to do that. It just needs to be able to get that attack off, whether that's it's protecting and then kind of damaging Kyogre a little bit further first, or whether it's trying to get up the Trick Room, maybe hope for an Origin Pulse miss. But I imagine maybe another switch into Fini, covers for the Will-O-Wisp at the moment as well, and then you're able to hopefully get up the Trick Room versus this hugely boosted Kyogre. So, but now we do see actually Mimikyu switch right back out as it came in.
Yeah, Incineroar switches out for Christian's Mimikyu here. Going to get that Intimidate once again, get the Fake Out onto this Calyrex in the next turn, which would be absolutely super useful, you know, especially even if that terrain changes, it's not really going to matter because it's not that Psychic terrain. Calyrex goes for the Protect here, actually, so this could be Mimikyu going for that Trick Room. Origin Pulse goes into possibly this Mimikyu here. It does not avoid, will not go into that Calyrex because of that Protect. Does break that Disguise on the Mimikyu, most importantly, so this means that, you know, if this Incineroar has that Dark type move, it could do some pretty decent damage onto this Mimikyu. Even with the Rain gone, you know, that Flare Blitz could do a ton of damage onto this Calyrex as well. Mimikyu gets that Trick Room off, switches the dimensions, means this Kyogre is going to be the slowest thing on the field, but having the Incineroar as well for now, having that Trick Room, you know, puts this Incineroar in a slightly more comfortable position, even though it is not the slowest thing on the field.
Absolutely not. It kind of makes Incineroar in an excellent position because Mimikyu is still able to go for a Shadow Sneak and get that boost onto the Calyrex thanks to its weakness policy. But because that Incineroar's just come in, it is able to fake it out. So it's still not offering a lot of offense. So we do see a switch out this time.
Yeah, Calyrex switches out for the Tapu Fini here. Once again, that bulky Tapu Fini on the field changes that terrain from the Grassy Surge to the Misty Surge, making sure that there is not going to be able for any possible burns maybe during this Trick Room here, but we do see the Fake Out. Fake Out goes onto the Tapu Fini. Mimikyu goes for the Will-O-Wisp. Kind of a tough move going for that Will-O-Wisp when you switch in your own Tapu Fini. Origin Pulse comes out. Mimikyu avoids it though, so this will only go into the Tapu Fini here. This goes and does just a little bit of damage. We saw that it hasn't been able to do a whole lot just because this Tapu Fini is so bulky.
Yeah, it's a pretty bulky Tapu Fini. And I think as we saw, I think Mimikyu was going to live that hit anyway, but obviously it's still very nice to be able to live on such a high amount of HP at the moment. However, because the rain is gone, actually Incineroar's Flare Blitz is looking a little bit nicer here, and it'll be able to take Tapu Fini's hits a lot better too. So kind of everything's just kind of coming up aces for Christian here. The rain goes at the right time, gets his Fake Out in at the right time. He's just making some really nice plays here. And Antoine, even though he has the Trick Room up, he still doesn't have the offense that he wants actually on the field, making use of it here. So we've seen the Tapu Fini hasn't gone for any Calm Minds or anything yet.
Yeah, Mimikyu once again switches out. Calyrex comes in its place. So Calyrex could possibly get a little bit of help from its partner Tapu Fini here. Also stops that berry eating, which is really important, especially on this Incineroar. Incineroar goes for the Parting Shot, though, onto the Tapu Fini. If this was onto that Calyrex, it would have been an absolutely great play. Even though the special attack drop is still nice, sends this Incineroar back, gets the opportunity once again for more Fake Out later in this game. And if you send the Mimikyu out here, you have a really nice type of, you know, you have some super effective attacks, but you don't want to go in because that weakness policy hasn't been procced yet. Instead, we see the Rillaboom come out, once again switching the terrain, getting more Fake Out pressure on the field. This is really helping for Christian to time out this Trick Room here, so that he is, you know, he's making the most of these turns where he cannot move the fastest. Nature's Madness finally revealed on this Tapu Fini, though, goes into the Kyogre slot. You're going to do 50% of its HP and make it much more vulnerable to any attacks from this Calyrex. Goes for the Origin Pulse, hits both of the Pokemon on Antoine's side of the field, does a pretty good amount of damage to both, does not get either of them into the bottom 25% of their HP, and they will regain some health from the grassy terrain on the field.
Yeah, as you said, there's the Nature's Madness coming from the Tapu Fini. That's exactly what Antoine needs to be able to get this Kyogre hopefully within range for this Calyrex if you're Antoine here. However, as we've seen, the grassy terrain and the leftovers is putting it comfortably above 50% at the moment. And without boosts on Calyrex, I don't think it's going to be quite enough to be able to pick up the knockout. But again, Christian's cycling in those Fake Outs really nicely. So he's able to stall out Trick Room, and as soon as Antoine plays defensive versus that, Kyogre gets further boosts. It gets more health from the leftovers recovery. It's looking quite nice.
Yeah, we do see the Grassy Glide goes into this Tapu Fini is enough to knock it out here. That really nice terrain change. Getting this Tapu Fini off the field, it won't have to deal with another Nature's Madness, but the Glacial Lance comes out from this Calyrex. This is going to go into both of the Pokemon on Christian's side, and this could be exactly what Antoine needs if he's able to get at least one knockout here, which he is. So this knockout on the Rillaboom will activate that Chilling Neigh onto this Calyrex Ice Rider, which is going to be able to boost it up here. There is going to be, you know, the possibility for some stronger attacks coming out. If this Origin Pulse does connect, effect, it will still do a really nice amount of damage onto this Calyrex. You have to make sure you get this knockout here, though, which you do from this Kyogre. So now Calyrex is off the field. You lose that offensive threat, and now I believe Antoine only has his Mimikyu in the back, if I'm not mistaken. So I think this is pretty much wrapped up for Christian to win this in a 2-0, especially with this Kyogre consistently boosted with that grassy terrain and the leftovers.
Yeah, I think so. However, it looked quite close towards the end there. I think it's if Kyogre had actually missed its Origin Pulse there, like Calyrex gets the boost, it's able to maybe protect from the Incineroar's Fake Out the next turn. Mimikyu can maybe help it boost it even further thanks to the Shadow Seek. You get a little bit help from grassy terrain. It's maybe not quite over just yet. So kind of right down to the end there for these two players. But as we see, the two busted disguised Mimikyus do come in, but obviously Christian has a lot more tools still at his disposal. And this Kyogre, even though it's just under 50%, it's going to heal even more the next turn. Mimikyu's still not intimidated yet, and it can always critical hit as well. But I think in a Mimikyu versus Mimikyu plus other stuff too, yeah, it's looking like a GG there. So really interesting teams though from both players. And as you said, this is your second time, Maeve, seeing the leftovers Kyogre, and it's been doing quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. Bulky Kyogre was not something I expected to see today, but it did really well, especially paired with Rillaboom, getting all of those boosts up, getting all of that HP recovery every single turn. It makes it really tough to deal with, especially after a Calm Mind. I think Antoine's only win con there was Shadow Sneak, crit, knockout, Origin Pulse miss 3 times in a row. It was kind of a tougher end game there. So, it is understandable to see that forfeit there, but still a really nice game played by both players. That Calyrex was in the right positioning that it needed to be when it got that Glacial Lance onto that Rillaboom. If there was any sort of Muddy Water accuracy drop onto that Kyogre, it could have been a really nice game. Just, you're working with RNG on your side, and if it's not getting that accuracy drop onto the Kyogre, that Origin Pulse, even though it is technically a fairly accurate move, it never feels fairly accurate when you're the one using it.
No, I bet it doesn't. But and as you said, like it's all on the field for so long, you were gonna miss some at some point. But if you're bulky enough, then you could take those hits too. But regardless, congratulations to Christian Ramírez for taking the first win for Mexico versus France as well, which puts them in a very nice position to hopefully take some more wins. So maybe they can ride off Christian's absolute victory and take it over France. But France still have a few more games to go as well. And they're only one more game away from actually drawing, and they're already 1-0 up in the group, so they're already in a very strong position. But we'll have to see how the rest of the week plays out.
Yeah, we will be right back. We are going to take a short break, and coming up with the next match, which is Guatemala versus the United States, that I won't get to watch. So like I said to Ben, treat my country fairly. I know there's some bias from you guys with Team UK yesterday, but thank you so much, guys. We'll be right back.